Continuing to talk about our unit on supply and demand, today we're going to move into thinking and talking about supply. We're going to do this fairly quickly. We're going to cover both the definitions of supply and the shifters in this one subunit here, because there's going to be a lot of parallels of what we have already covered in learning about demand. So when we're talking about supply, just like when we're talking about demand, economists have a very specific definition in that we're not meaning what you typically mean when you're talking about changes in supply. What we're talking about is the relationship between a good's price and the maximum quantity that sellers are willing and able to sell at that price. So it's the entire relationship, not just a particular quantity. And we have this different definition between the supply, that relationship, and between price and quantity supplied, which is the amount of a good or service that producers are willing to sell at a given price. So the defining difference between quantity supplied and quantity demanded as well versus supply and demand is that the quantity demanded or supplied has that current price associated with it. Now we had our law of demand, we also have a similar law of supply. The law of supply tells us that this relationship between a good's price and the quantity that is supplied is positive, meaning that an increase in price leads to a higher quantity supplied. Similar to how we can represent demand, three different ways we can represent supply in those same three ways, through a table, graphically, or mathematically. Looking at this table or schedule here, we see that higher prices are associated with higher quantity supplied. And if we look at the lower prices, no one wants to sell things if they're not getting a lot of benefit from those sales. So we see lower quantity supplied in that instance. Looking at it graphically, again, we put price on that horizontal axis here. So price is up here, quantities on that horizontal axis, price is on the vertical axis, and as price increases, what we observe is that people are more willing to supply quantity. So quantity supplied increases. That's that law of supply. So at a price of 10, we might see a quantity of supplied of 400, but if the price goes to 20, maybe quantity increases to 800. Representing it mathematically, again, we can have a function here which relates the quantity supplied to price, and this main part that is supply is the relationship between quantity supplied and price. And there are other things that impact quantity supplied, just like there were other things that impact quantity demanded. Inputs, technology, taxes and subsidies, and number of firms, as well as expectation. These first two, this relationship is what we mean when we say supply. These last five are the shifters of supply. So a mathematical example might be we have this quantity of pure fish food might be 40 times price. Just as we had the market demand, the combination of all the individual buyers, we're also going to be interested in market demand, supply, which is the combination of all suppliers. So let's say we have Pure Fish Food Supply as one supplier and City Fish's supply as well, the other supplier. The market supply is the addition of those quantities, again, at given prices. So we're adding quantities at given prices. And so adding these together, we can see at a price of 10, Pure Fish Food is supplying 400, City is supplying 100, and the market supply is 500. Finally, we can do this graphically as well. Looking at Pure Fish Food, City Fish Food, and the market supply. We want to differentiate between movements along the supply curve. These are caused by changes in the price of the good. This is that direct relationship between price and quantity supplied, and shifts in supply. These are where the entire curve is moving. It either is shifting to the right or to the left, similar to how we had movements and shifts for the demand curve. Okay. So here is our supply curve, and let's say we're talking about coffee. And with something that could cause a decrease in the supply of coffee is a hurricane that destroys crops, right? And so there's less that is able to produce. Something that could increase the supply of coffee is maybe there's a new way to brew coffee at half the cost, which allows there to be more production. Let's go through these different supply shifters. So the first supply shifter is inputs. Inputs are the resources that are used in the production process. The cost of inputs is one of the main supply shifters and determinants of supply. If you have a higher input cost, you're going to be less likely to want to sell things. This is because higher input costs lead to higher per unit cost of production, which then means that the sellers would need a higher price for any quantity that they wanted to supply. So there's this direct relationship between input cost and the supply curve. The second shifter is technology. Technology is how a supplier takes inputs to create a product or to make an output. So an increase in technology means that you are able to produce more with the same amount of inputs. For example, producing apples with a certain amount of acreage, making a certain number of reports with a certain amount of labor. These are things that would be kind of increases in technology, would be kind of making more with the same amount. And shifts in technology are increases in supply. Given a particular price, you are able to make the same or make more. The third shifter is taxes and subsidies. What suppliers are caring about is how much they're taking home. Taxes take out what they are taking home. Subsidies, where the government is paying sellers to produce, they increase supply because they're increasing what the producers are taking home. Our fourth shifter is the number of firms in the market. Just like the number of individuals in the market influences the demand, the number of firms influences supply. The market supply curve, that's the combination of all those individuals. So if we have more firms in an industry, more firms in the market, we'll have more market supply. Our fifth shifter is what are our producers thinking prices are going to do in the future. Are we expecting a higher price tomorrow? If so, you might want to delay sales. And so there's kind of going to be an inverse relationship between expected price and today's supply. So those were our 5 different shifters of our supply curve. And so what we'll be talking about next is combining supply and demand together and talking about what happens in the market with these 2 different forces, and we'll be talking about equilibrium and disequilibrium in our next video. Thanks for joining me. I hope you continue to watch, and I hope these are beneficial for you. Take care.